I remember the sun that day. Hot, relentless, just like every other August day out here. I was driving my old pickup, the one with the creaky suspension, along a stretch of asphalt that was slowly being swallowed by sand. Checked the GPS, ran over the map again. Same old routine. Before the real empty space started, I pulled into what passed for a gas station, grabbed a bottle of water. I figured it was important to stay hydrated, logical step. But then, as I held that bottle, it started to feel odd. Not just warm from the desert heat, which would be normal. It grew steadily warmer in my hand, like someone had microwaved it for just a second too long. And then, when I twisted the cap off, a puff of air, cold and sharp, hit my face. Winter air out here in August. I took a sip, and the water tasted metallic, like licking a rusty coin. Honestly, I thought maybe I just bought some cheap, bad stuff. Just a faulty batch, I mumbled to myself. I tossed the bottle into the nearest trash can, a rusted-out barrel next to a billboard with faded jeans on it. Tried to call my ex-wife, Sarah, to give her an update. No signal, of course. As I started to pull away from that dumpster, I heard it. A small clinking sound, then a faint, wobbly moan. So faint, I almost missed it. Like a train whistle, but far, far away, and stretched out. I glanced back. Nothing, just the barrel. Right, Dan, I told myself, trying to sound normal. You're tired, that's all. I started the engine, kept going. But then, the compass on the dash, the old analog one, started spinning, just whirling around and around. And that faint moan? It was louder now. Right outside the window, I swear. I slammed on the brakes. The pickup skidded a little in the dust. I killed the engine. The sudden silence was heavy. I could hear my own heart, loud and quick, doing a frantic little dance in my chest. I looked out. Nothing. Just the desert. Endless. I powered up my phone. The wallpaper was a photo of Lily, smiling, her tooth missing. For a second, just a flicker, the picture went all staticky, like a bad broadcast. Lily's smile twisted, a strange hollow look in her eyes. I snapped the phone shut, my jaw tight. Just picturing things, I whispered. Pain makes you see things, that's all. But the whistle, that long, drawn-out sound, kept playing in my head. Not something I heard with my ears, but a feeling of long, drawn-out pain that sound carried. Hours later, the sun was still high. I drove past a familiar stretch, a dirt track cutting through the bone-dry land. And there it was, a saguaro cactus, huge, one I remembered being so green, so full of life just a few months ago. Now, its thick body was shrunken, pulled inward, the arms sharp, curled like claws. The color was a sickly gray-brown. It looked like something had just sucked all the life right out of it from the inside. Not just dry, not just old. The shadow it cast on the sand seemed sharper, meaner too. Just an old cactus, Dan, I told myself, my voice a little rough. This country is big. All sorts of things happen. Probably just imagining things. I frowned, gave a little shake of my head, adjusted my sunglasses. Tried to push the image away. But something, I don't know, something stuck. It had a grip. I stopped at a ghost town later that evening, a collection of broken-down shacks where the wind just whistled through empty window frames. I checked my watch. The second hand juddered, stopped for 5 full seconds, then jumped ahead fast, trying to catch up. I stared at it. Just an old watch, I muttered. I tried the truck radio again. Nothing but static. But then, through the hiss, a low, drawn-out groan. It started right next to my ear, right there, then faded out, echoing from somewhere down the old, rusted tracks. I walked over, stepping carefully over rotting railroad ties. And there, on one of the rails, was a scratch. Deep, sharp-edged, like something huge, something with metal claws, had been dragged along it. Kids messing around, probably. These old tracks ain't used anymore anyway. What's this got to do with Lily? I tried to convince myself. My heart skipped a beat when that low sound seemed to come from right beside me, but I just shook my head and started the truck. Night came. The desert sky out here is something else. Stars so big they look like smudges of glitter, closer than you'd believe. I set up my small camp, trying to keep my mind on the practical things. The campfire crackled, throwing dancing shadows. That's when I heard it again, the whistle. But it wasn't from any train. It was a long, mournful sound, like a cry of pain stretched out, something that vibrated deep in my chest. I grabbed my binoculars, scanned the horizon. And there, down the old railroad tracks, a long, dark shape. No lights, no sound of an engine, just a long, dark void, moving slowly, cutting across the starry sky. It wasn't reflecting the moonlight, it just was the darkness. Then my phone vibrated in my pocket. No signal, I knew that, but it kept going. I pulled it out. The screen showed an old photo of Lily, her face faded, pixels distorted, like a bad scan. And her eyes, usually so bright, they weren't looking at me. They were looking through me, empty, at nothing at all. I fumbled, slammed the phone shut, but the whistle, that mournful, aching sound, didn't stop. It was inside my head now. It had taken root. "No!" I tried to yell. "Lily, my girl, no!" My voice caught in my throat. "It's just stress. The moon's playing tricks, making me see things." My body felt cold, shaky. Cold sweat ran down my back. The next morning, I woke up feeling beaten, exhausted. My body ached. Tremors ran through my hands. I went back to the old tracks where I'd seen that scratch. It was gone, not a trace, like it had never been there. I looked at my phone again. Lily's photo was still messed up, blurry. And then I saw something else, something that made my blood go cold. Below Lily's distorted face, a name, written in an old, looping script I didn't recognize. The name of another girl, one who had been reported missing hundreds of years ago. I stared at it. I threw the phone to the ground. Then, shaking, I picked it up, my eyes fixed on that name. This wasn't just my imagination. It was trying to talk to me. It knew about Lily. Or maybe Lily was already part of it. A cold shock ran down my arm, deep into my bones. I started digging around, desperate now, not for clues, not for evidence, but for something that made sense of the madness, or proved it. Found an old, crumpled newspaper shoved under a jagged rock near the tracks. The headline, yellowed and faded, screamed about a mysterious disappearance, right here, in this town, centuries ago. But the photo of the missing person on that ancient paper, it looked so much like Lily, so much. And the date itself, at the top, it was blurred, smeared, like someone had tried to wipe it away. As if it was trying to tell me that Lily had been gone for hundreds of years. I crumpled the paper in my hands. My eyes were wide, burning. Sweat poured down my forehead. I couldn't breathe. The whole world felt like it was spinning. My past, my memories, they were being rewritten. No, being erased. I kept going. The days blurred into one long, hot headache. I found it, tucked away, a small, rotting cabin almost swallowed by the endless sand.
near a stretch of track that twisted, then just ended, or seemed to. It was an old railway engineer's place, maybe, a name I'd heard mentioned in some local lore about an unsolved disappearance. The door hung open, flapping on one hinge. Inside, dust covered everything. I found a journal, thick and old, tucked under an overturned crate. The pages were brittle, the ink faded, written in a shaky hand. I started reading, skimming through faded entries, desperate for anything. "Day no longer means anything," I read aloud, my voice hoarse. "I've seen them. The train never stops. It is the bloodline. It drains everything. My daughter, she's on it. She's waving." The sentence, "she's waving," was scrawled over, almost scratched out, but not quite. Like the writer had tried to deny it, but couldn't. Just as I read that, a sudden cold gust of wind whipped through the broken windows of the cabin, making all the journal pages flap. They settled back down, but not on the page I was reading. They were back at the very beginning. Only, the first page wasn't filled with writing. It was a frantic, crude drawing. A train, endless, with no discernible beginning or end. And from every window, blurred, distorted faces. And in the very last car, I saw a face. So terribly like Lily. And it was waving. At the exact same moment, a rush of cold air, icy cold, brushed past the back of my neck. I spun around, my heart leaping. Nothing. Empty room.
But then I looked down at the dusty wooden floorboards. Small, bare footprints, wet ones. They were there, stark against the dust. Then they shimmered, faded, and were gone. Just like that. Evaporated. That was it. That was the proof. Not a doubt left in my mind. This, whatever this was, it was real. Her, it was real. I stumbled out of the cabin, the journal clutched in my hand. Got back into the truck, my hands shaking so bad I almost dropped the keys. The engine turned over, coughed, then rumbled to life. The radio came on, just static again. But this time, rising above the hiss, a voice. Mechanical, hollow, a whisper. It spoke words I couldn't quite make out, jumbled. But two words, repeated, clearest of all. Lily, rail, Lily, rail. The voice stopped. Then a small, weak laugh, so faint, but it was Lily's laugh, or what was left of it, twisted. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My eyes were fixed on the map display, the endless desert stretching out, dotted with those old, rusted tracks that curved into nothingness. I knew it then. I wasn't looking for a missing girl anymore. I was chasing something that had taken her, and it wanted me to follow. I remember lying in my tent, the canvas flapping a little in the dry desert breeze. After finding that old journal, after hearing what was left of Lily's laugh, I couldn't really sleep, not properly anyway. I rolled over, unzipped the flap a bit, and peered out into the night. The sky out there, in the middle of nowhere, it was always something else. So many stars, like someone had just spilled glitter all over a black velvet cloth. I used to tell Lily that when she was little. We'd sit in our backyard on one of those old picnic blankets, and she'd point up, asking about every single one. "Daddy, is that one a secret?" she'd ask, pointing to some faint speck. I missed that. I missed everything about it.
Just holding her hand, feeling her small fingers curl around mine, watching her face light up. I fixed my eyes on a familiar grouping, the Big Dipper, I think it was called, or maybe the Little Dipper. My dad had taught me to find it when I was small. But as I watched, as I really looked, it was off. There were fewer stars than I remembered. A few dark patches where bright points should have been. And then, as I stared, one of the smaller, fainter stars just flickered out. Like a light bulb burning out, not slowly, just gone, completely. The blackness just got a little deeper in that spot. I rubbed my eyes, hard. "Just tired, Dan," I mumbled to myself. "You're seeing things." The desert night could do that to you, I figured. Play tricks. I pulled the flap shut, zipped it up tight, and fumbled for my notepad. Had to write this down. Everything. Get it out of my head, onto paper, so I could make sense of it later. But when I tried to write, the pen, a brand new one I'd bought at that gas station, just scraped dryly against the page. No ink. Nothing. I tried to shake it, scribble with it. Still nothing. I stared at it, then threw it down. Cough, cough, cough. A soft tapping on the outside of my tent. Light, steady. My breath hitched in my throat. I froze. There's no one out here, not for miles. I knew that. I'd checked. I'd seen the empty road, the endless sand. The tapping stopped. I stopped breathing, just sat there, listening, every muscle tight. A moment passed, then another. Then, cough, cough, cough. It came again, this time from inside the tent, right behind me. My blood ran cold. I couldn't move, couldn't even turn my head. My eyes were fixed on the tent wall in front of me, but I knew, I absolutely knew, whatever had been outside was now in, with me. A wave of freezing air washed over the back of my neck, so cold it felt like a splash of ice water. And it carried a smell, earthy, damp, like something had been buried for a long, long time, and then dug up. A wet, stale smell, like old wet dirt. A wave of fear, so cold and sharp, cut through me. I moved, spun around, grabbing the hunting knife I kept by my sleeping bag. My hand closed around the familiar grip, cold metal against my sweating palm. I turned, knife ready. Nothing. The tent was empty, no one there. Just the sleeping bag, crumpled on the ground. But it was sunken in, deeply, like someone had just been lying there and then quietly gotten up. And underneath it, tucked almost out of sight, was a piece of paper.
It looked like the page from the old journal, but smaller. My hands were shaking so bad, I almost dropped the knife trying to pick it up. My eyes scanned the messy, hurried scrawl. "She's waiting for you, on this train." I looked up. The tent flap was still zipped, but a tall, dark shape stood outside, etched against the faint starlight. No clear form, just a tall, deep, solid shadow. Not moving, just there, waiting. And I knew I had to go. The morning light was sickly, gray. I packed up my tent in a daze, the journal tucked into my backpack, the note clutched in my hand. Ran a hand over my stubbled chin. Didn't feel like I'd slept at all. My eyes felt gritty. I got into the truck, started the engine. It coughed a little, but it started. I drove. The aimless wandering was over. Now I had a destination. I drove for what felt like hours, maybe days, the landscapes blurring.
I was on a dirt track, barely a road, leading towards a canyon I hadn't seen before. Or maybe I had. Everything was starting to feel familiar and wrong all at once. And then I saw it. On the ground, near a set of old, rusted tracks that ran alongside the dirt road, was a symbol, etched onto a flat, gray rock. It looked like an eye. Not quite human, not quite animal. Just an eye, staring. It made my stomach clench. I frowned, pushed down on the gas. The truck lurched forward. But as I kept driving, the road seemed to go on and on, winding, twisting. And then I passed it again. The same thorny, shriveled cactus I'd passed, I don't know, 10 minutes ago? And then again. The third time, in what felt like 20 minutes, I slammed on the brakes. I hadn't made a single turn, hadn't changed direction, just kept straight. But there it was, the same withered saguaro, its arms like sickly, grasping talons. The same gray rock with the eye symbol, just a little further down the track. Am I just driving in circles? My voice felt raw, like sandpaper. Or am I just so messed up from not sleeping I can't tell the difference anymore? I rubbed my forehead, trying to clear my head, squinting at the horizon. But I absolutely knew this wasn't just my fatigue. This place, it was twisting itself, over and over. I kept going, following the tracks as best I could. They seemed to be leading me deeper into the canyon. The air felt heavier here, thick somehow. And the desert around me, it wasn't just dry anymore. The sand itself felt different, coarser, like tiny, sharp granules. And the few plants that clung to life here were gray, brittle, their leaves curling inward in a way that defied natural decay. Then I found it, a spot where the tracks themselves were wrong. They didn't just lie straight or curve gently. They were twisted, like a metal ribbon braided tightly into itself, then unbraided again. A bizarre, impossible knot of rusted metal that somehow still formed a continuous path. I got out of the truck, cautiously, pushing my feet through the fine, alien-feeling dust. I reached out a hand, touched the rail. It was shockingly cold. Not a natural cold, but a deeper, harder, more insistent cold that seemed to sink right into my bones. And it felt sticky, like old, dried sap, but if sap were made of metal. I pulled my hand back, disgusted. A gray-black smear was on my fingertips. It felt wrong. Everything felt wrong. And then I caught a smell, close and strong. Damp earth, rotting, like that smell from the tent, mixing with something else. Burnt metal, faintly but unmistakably. And then the whistle came again. This time it was right in my ears. No, not in my ears. In my head. In my skull, vibrating, rattling my teeth. It wasn't a mechanical sound, not really. It was thousands of screams. Raw, tearing, ancient screams, all stretched out, distorted, weaving into one long, mournful sound that tried to rip my mind apart. I clapped my hands over my ears, hard, but it did absolutely nothing. The sound was inside. It was me. "What the hell is this?" I whispered, the sound barely audible over the internal shriek. "It's not a whistle. It's not. Something's wrong, terribly wrong." My whole body was shaking, but not from cold. It was from the vibration, the sheer horror of a sound that refused to be silenced, that lived in my very skull. My eyes were fixed on the black smear on my hand, as if it held all the answers. And then, it was there. Not appearing from the horizon, not rolling from a curve in the track.
It just manifested, out of thin air, a tear in the fabric of the desert sky, a long, dark shape, The train. The endless train. It slid past me with impossible speed, a blur of tarnished gray metal, no lights, no sound of wheels on rail, just a smooth, horrifying rush. I stood there, mouth agape, frozen. My eyes tried to track it, but it was too fast, impossible. And then, as it blurred past, through the grimy windows of those carriages, I saw them. Faint, shifting shapes, distorted figures, waving, all of them, just waving. So many faces, stretched, indistinct, some screaming silently, some simply hollow. And then, in one of the windows, for one terrifying, impossible second, I saw her, Lily. Her face was twisted, her eyes huge and empty. Her small hand was raised, waving, not like she was saying hello, more like a doll, a puppet, mimicking a movement she no longer understood. She didn't call my name. She couldn't. But I knew, I absolutely knew it was her, my Lily. I tried to scream her name. Nothing came out. My throat was suddenly dry, constricted, like concrete had been poured down it. I tried to reach out, to run after the impossible train, but my legs wouldn't move. And then, as Lily's twisted image blurred past, something small, something familiar, detached itself from the window. It fell to the ground with a soft thud, right by my feet. A child's glove. It was Lily's, the one she'd been wearing the day she vanished. The small, pink one, with the little glitter star. Now it was black and gray, faded, stained, and it carried that same damp, rotting smell. I stumbled, fell to my knees, choking back a sob. Tears streamed down my face, blurring the impossible image of the disappearing train, the glove at my feet. Lily, my girl, no, you can't be on that. That's not you. It can't be. My heart hammered against my ribs, a desperate drum against the overwhelming dread. It couldn't be her, but it was. My trembling hand reached for the glove. It was so cold, so incredibly cold, even in the searing desert heat. Like it had been soaked in ice water, then left in a tomb. As I held it, looked at it closely, I saw it happening. The fabric, once soft, was shriveling, not rotting, not drying. It was turning into fine, gray sand, sifting through my fingers, right there, in my hand. The very threads seemed to unravel, becoming dust, falling away, leaving only a ghost of a shape. Decay. Not natural decay, but something else. Something active, something consuming. A tangible proof that everything, even solid matter, could just cease. I felt a cold current, like electricity, but not painful, just intensely cold, running from my fingers, up my arm, and into my chest. The last of the glove turned to dust, a small pile of gray grit in my palm. I sat there, slumped in the sand, just watching the last faint trace of the train disappear into nothingness. But the smell remained. That damp, rotten earth and burnt metal. It hung heavy in the air. I closed my eyes, but it didn't help. Lily's hollow face, her puppet-like wave, was burned into my eyelids. She was being dissolved, I thought. Like the glove. She was dissolving. I knew what I had to do. There was no more choice. She was waiting. On that train. I got back up, stumbled back to the section of twisted track, the impossible nut of metal. This was it.
This was where space and time itself had broken. I stood there, rooted to the spot, waiting. The sun was getting low now, painting the sky in violent shades of orange and blood red. And the whistle came again, but not the shriek, not the distorted scream. This time it was different. It became a sound, a call, my name, whispered, not with a voice, but with the sound. It was low, soothing, like a lullaby, but chilling cold, slipping into my mind, curling around my thoughts. Dan, Dan, Lily's waiting. I looked down at my hand, the one that had held the glove, the one that still felt that cold current, and there it was. Faintly, on my palm, a blurred symbol had formed, like a tattoo, but gray, indistinct. The exact same eye symbol I'd seen earlier, etched onto the rock. The one that was probably etched onto the twisted rail, too. I had been marked. I was part of it now. A strange smile, not really mine, spread across my face. It felt empty, but also accepting. That damp, rotten earth smell, the burnt metal, it didn't churn my stomach anymore. Now it was drawing me in, calling me. I was ready.
I set up camp again for what would be my last night in the dusty, broken lands. I tried to sleep, just for a little while, but my mind raced. I looked up at the stars, trying to find some anchor in the familiar, but even the constellations seemed warped, missing stars, like someone had plucked them out of the sky. I closed my eyes, picturing Lily, asking about secret stars. Then an image of her, twisted and waving, superimposed on the starlit sky. I opened my eyes again. No use. A faint tapping on the outside of my tent. Tap, tap, tap. I didn't flinch. I just listened. It stopped, then started inside, right behind me. A cold breath on my neck, that tomb smell. I reached for my knife with no real urgency. I turned. Nothing. But the bedroll was sunken in, and on it a single small piece of paper. She's waiting for you, on this train. I looked at the tent flap. A tall, black shadow, indistinct at the edges, stood there, not moving, just waiting. I zipped open the flap. The shadow was still there, but it wasn't solid. It was more like an absence, a deeper black against the fading night. I walked towards it, towards the tracks. I didn't feel fear now, just a hollow, driven need, a compulsion. Every step felt heavier than the last, like the sand was pulling me down, but I kept going. The tracks glimmered faintly in the almost dawn light, twisting into the distance. Then I saw it, the train. It wasn't just appearing anymore. It was there, solid, massive, silent. A long, gray, endless line of carriages stretching far, far into the receding darkness, beyond what was physically possible. It sat on the twisted rails, waiting. No sound of an engine, no lights in its windows, just a dark, oppressive presence. I walked towards it. My legs felt like they were moving through thick mud, but I still moved. Towards the last car, the one I felt drawn to. The symbol, the eye, on my palm tingled, cold. My heart was a dull thud in my chest. My breath was shallow. I stepped up onto the rusted metal step, my hand finding a cold, sticky grab rail. The door, heavy and dark, slid open with a soft, sucking sound. I stepped inside. No ordinary train car, no seats, no lights,
just a gaping, endless labyrinth. A network of dark, twisting corridors, the walls stained with something dark and slick. Window frames, but no glass, just empty black holes, showing nothing but a deeper darkness outside. Dust motes danced in the gloom, illuminated by some unseen internal glow. The whistle began again, but it wasn't just a sound, it was now a cacophony. From every direction, from the walls, from the floor, from the very air itself. Thousands of voices, screaming, wailing, moaning, all woven into that long, drawn-out cry. It echoed, not just in my ears, but in my very soul, a symphony of suffering. I walked, my footsteps muffled by the strange, gritty floor, and I searched for Lily. I passed car after car after car. They were all the same, dark, empty, filled with that mournful sound. And in the empty window frames, I saw them. Faint, shifting shapes, distorted figures, waving, all just waving. Thousands of them. Their faces were blurred, their bodies indistinct, like reflections in oily water. They were all empty, all gone. I reached out, my hand shaking, and touched one of the figures. It looked like an old woman, her face a mask of endless sorrow. My fingers passed right through her, and she dissolved, instantly, into a puff of dry, cold sand, lighter than air. It clung to my hand, sticking there for a moment, then it too fell away, leaving an almost painful coldness behind. I kept walking. How long? Minutes? Hours? Days? Time was meaningless in here. A minute felt like an eternity, then an hour would pass in a blink. I saw the same twisted corridors again and again, the same stains on the walls, the same empty window frames. And then I saw it, an impossible sight. The train was running parallel to itself. Outside, through one of those window frames, I could make out another identical train, gliding silently alongside, just a few feet away. It was a loop. The tracks, the desert, the train itself, all twisted back to repeat, endlessly. And in one of the windows of that parallel train, I saw her, a small shape, Lily. She stood in an empty, grimy car, her back to me at first. Then she slowly turned. Her face was gone. Not disfigured, not crying, just a blank, smooth expanse where her features should have been. Her eyes were sunken hollows, her small hand raised in that familiar, sickening wave. But one of her fingers didn't move. It was stiff, like a broken wire inside a puppet. And beside her, a tall, impossibly dark figure. It was the shadow from my tent. No clear features, just a taller, deeper absence of light. It reached out, slow, deliberate, placed a hand on Lily's shoulder. And then Lily started to wave again. But this time it was exactly like all the other figures, mechanical, soulless, part of the pattern. And then, in the next window frame, in the next car of that parallel train, I saw myself, my own face, twisted, my eyes empty, staring straight ahead, my hand raised in a slow, unnatural wave. I was there, trapped, already part of it. I felt the cold current surge through my whole body. I was pulled deeper, not by force, but by something softer, a welcoming chill, a feeling of fading. My muscles slackened, my mind becoming a blur. The screams of the whistle softened. They weren't screams anymore. They were a long, deep sigh, like the desert itself, exhaling a final, endless breath. It wasn't pain. It was just being absorbed. My face felt like it was shifting, melting. My vision blurred. My eyes, I felt them, hollow, empty. I was not Daniel Hayes anymore. I was a part of this, a piece of the train, a part of the loop, another figure, another waveform in the chorus of countless souls, another passenger on a journey with no end. Far away, in a town untouched by the creeping sand, a young police officer looked at a missing persons report. Daniel Hayes, last seen near an old, unused railway track. The older officer, leaning against the desk, shrugged. Just another one swallowed by the desert kid. He said it with a tired sigh. The young officer looked out the window. The sky was a strange, unsettling red, and from somewhere, impossibly far off, a train whistle sounded, warped, mournful, endless, a curse carried on the wind.